Hey guys, so today I thought I would talk about what makes a simple battle tactics system, like the one I'm implementing in my game, um, good from a design perspective and the different design elements that you have to consider, or that I've been considering, I suppose, in my own designing of that battle system. So let me know if you find it interesting and let me know if I leave anything important out as well because that is a possibility. And I would love to add it to my game if I have. So, one of the first things, and probably the most obvious, is terrain. So, essentially, the surface that you're actually fighting the battle on and how your characters can maneuver around it is one of kind of the main points of a tactics system. It's going to make a big amount of change in the pathways that get created. So this can be done via something like water tiles that the player can't walk on, or different heights that the player can't move up, or heights that the player can only move up in certain increments, such as for my game, I have players can only move up one height at a time. And the really nice thing about these is that it can basically force the player into doing things such as a party split, or it can force them into an area where they get ambushed by enemies, or it can also have them queue behind each other and have to consider who should go first and lead the party. Recently, I've been working on really adding these to the battle maps because they were all quite flat before, and I think now I've made more use of the water and the actual tiling to make more interesting pathing throughout. So hopefully that's apparent when the demo comes out. The next thing I'm going to talk about is positionals. And what I mean by positionals is how where you're getting attacked from affects the damage and accuracy. So, for example, someone hitting from the sides or from the back will hit with more accuracy than someone hitting from the front. The nice thing about this is you can take into account when you create the enemy AI. So I've actually created the enemy AI so that it basically seeks out safety and that it looks for its back to be covered if possible. And it looks to look towards players as well. So on the current grid I have, I don't allow diagonal movement and the player can only move 3 squares. So actually if the player is right in front of an enemy facing their front, then they actually won't be able to move 3 squares behind as well. So that's a consideration that has to be taken into account as well. And maybe sneaking up behind an enemy or targeting them with 2 players might be a consideration there. Another consideration is ranged attack accuracy. So if you have a character that is mainly ranged attacks and their strength is ranged attacks, not melee attacks, then that's something that you have to consider, and you have to consider how accuracy gets affected by the distance. So I've actually changed my game so that the longer the distance of a ranged attack, not inherently magic attacks, because I feel like that would work different and you have to spend mana for those, but the ranged attacks get affected by how far away you are from the enemy you're attacking. So if you're the max distance from the enemy that you possibly can be, and they're within distance to range attack, then you will actually do more damage the closer you are to that max distance away from them, as opposed to being right beside them, because otherwise there would be no point in giving those ranged attack characters melee attacks. While as there's the trade-off then because the melee attack might be weaker, but it has better accuracy up close. So if you do find yourself next to an enemy, it might be better off using the melee attack, backing up, and then using a ranged attack next time. The next consideration, and the thing that probably has the most time spent on it in general, for me at least, is the enemy AI. So this is definitely the first project I've taken on with such intense enemy AI, and I wanted there to be a large variety of different kinds of enemies that could do different kinds of attacks as well. So at the moment, I have different kinds of enemy behaviors, and to name some of those, range preference, melee only, ranged only, status effect ranged, AoE ranged, AoE melee, AoE and status effect ranged. And while each of the enemies that might be under these behaviors has different attacks, the behavior basically is one whole system to define how all enemies of that behavior will act. So, for example, with a ranged preference enemy, while it will prefer to use range attacks, if it's already in melee range, then it will just attack melee. And then it will check to see if it's already in position to do a ranged attack on anyone. And if it's not already in position to do a ranged attack on anyone, then it will look for the next closest person and it will see how far it has to go to attack them. And if it can get within that range, it will go within that range and it will attack them. And if it can't get within that range, it'll get a little bit closer while keeping a safe distance. Obviously, the enemy's preference is to take the move first and then to move away because they want to act somewhat defensively as well. Having multiple different patterns for enemy preference of moving and attacking just really makes it more interesting and tactical when the player has to consider who is the best party member to take on what enemy, or maybe multiple party members should take on one enemy or try and corner them. There's a lot of small, weird design aspects as well when it comes to tactics games. So, one of the recent things that I ran into that I realized I was going to have to come up with a solution for is the fact that when a party member gets knocked out, essentially, they still stay in the arena so that they are able to get revived. Um, but the problem with that is that it leaves the option open there for an enemy to get blocked in into a corner or another party member to get blocked in into a corner by the knocked out party member. So some games handle this by teleporting the body across the arena, which I find a little bit weird. And I wanted to come up with a solution to that. So I think what I'm going to implement is going to be basically just a move to starting position option for that party member, where it snaps them to as close a position to the start as possible. So they're just out of the way again. If I allowed them to move in general, it could give the possibility to use them sort of as a shield for someone's back or the like, and I don't really want to give that as an option because I feel like that could be sabotaged potentially. While I feel like if there's limited option for movement and it's literally just that they can move to one of the starting squares again, then there's no option to make that favourable for the player. Another consideration that's going to change from game to game is how many party members are on the team and how many enemies do they have to defeat, more or less, on each map. So at the moment, I am aiming for around 4 enemies on average in the earlier maps at least. Some of these are going to be randomly chosen from a list of enemies that can pop up in the area, and then one of the enemies, at least from each map, is going to be basically a set enemy that's always going to be there. Just add a little bit of randomization. And in the current system I have, there are 3 party members, which sounds a little bit unusual. I know the standard for sort of basic party setups is 4 often, and often in battle tactics games it's actually more. But I felt like 3 party members allowed for an interesting mix, and it kind of works on the small scale battle maps that I've set up. I'm also planning on there being 8 members in total to choose from, so that they get swapped around essentially. I know a lot of the time in other tactics games, the party members can have their classes changed or they can change their stats and the like, but I've basically just set it up that there is a party member that has a certain play style for each, and you can equip whatever you want onto them. You can optimize their stats whatever way you want in the way you equip them. But the customization there is in the team that you create and prefer, and you change along the way as you play. So I want to aim for some really unique party members and party members with really specific play styles, so that playing with a different team feels like a completely different tactical experience as well. So that's all I have for today. So I hope you enjoyed what I had to say, and let me know if I should make more videos like this, or if, again, if I left anything out that you think is really important in a tactic system, of course, let me know. Or if I'm wrong on any of my ideas as well, I want to know that too, so I can improve my game. So thanks for watching, and like and subscribe, and I will see you later.